The air inside the corporate headquarters hummed with a quiet tension. Veronica King, the woman who had built this empire from the ground up, stepped through the entrance with the same grace and confidence that had always defined her. But today, something was different. There was a shadow hanging in the air, thick and suffocating. The soft click of her heels on the polished floors echoed like a drumbeat, drawing the attention of those in the lobby, their eyes flicking nervously as they pretended to go about their business. The weight of every gaze on her felt like an invisible force, pressing against her chest. But Veronica had learned long ago how to ignore such things. She had bigger battles to fight. She approached the security desk, a smile playing on her lips, a smile that held no warmth. "Good morning," she said, her voice smooth, unwavering. The guard, a middle-aged man who had always greeted her with respect, looked up at her with a strained expression. "Sorry, Ms. King. I'm afraid you're not on the access list today." Veronica's smile faltered for only a fraction of a second. The words didn't make sense. She was the founder, the lifeblood of this company. Every inch of this building was a testament to her drive, her vision, and her sacrifices. And now, here she was, standing at the door like an outsider. The confusion crept up her spine like an icy chill, but she pushed it down. Her composure was her shield. "I'm sorry, there must be some mistake," Veronica said, her tone still calm but now edged with a quiet authority. She didn't have time for this. She was the one who had built this company, this legacy. "Let me through." The guard, visibly uncomfortable, glanced at the monitor. "I don't see your name here, Ms. King. I'm going to have to call someone." Something inside Veronica shifted. This wasn't a mistake. This was deliberate. Her pulse quickened, but her face remained the picture of calm. She stepped forward, her movements precise, measured. "Call who?" she asked, the question hanging in the air like a challenge. "You don't need anyone's permission. I'm the one who built this company." The guard hesitated for a moment, his eyes darting around the room, his hands twitching as though unsure of what to do. The silence between them felt like it stretched for eternity, broken only by the low hum of the building's air conditioning. "Ms. King, I don't know what's going on," the guard stammered, his voice shaky. "But please, I have to follow the protocol." Veronica didn't wait for him to finish. She stepped past him, moving toward the entrance with the same calm resolve she had always carried. The air felt different now, thicker. She could feel the eyes of the employees on her as she walked, but none of them said a word. They didn't need to. Their silence spoke volumes. It wasn't until she reached the elevator that she felt the true weight of what was happening. Something was very wrong. A flicker of doubt passed through her mind, but she shut it out. Veronica King didn't entertain doubts. She acted. And right now, the only thing that mattered was getting to the bottom of this. She stepped into the elevator, pressing the button for the top floor. As the doors slid shut, she caught a glimpse of a few board members, huddled in a corner, their faces tight with discomfort. Their eyes met hers for just a split second before they quickly looked away. That was all she needed. The pieces of the puzzle began to fall into place, each one more ominous than the last. Her heart raced as the elevator ascended. She had built this empire. She had fought for it, bled for it, and now it was slipping away from her. But she would not go down without a fight. The elevator doors opened with a soft chime, and Veronica stepped out, her heels clicking against the marble floors. The boardroom door was ajar, a faint murmur of voices spilling into the hallway. Her hand hovered over the door handle, but she didn't open it just yet. She knew better than anyone that the true battle wasn't won in boardrooms or with words alone. It was won by staying one step ahead of those who would dare to take what was rightfully hers. Inside, the board members were already seated, the room silent except for the rustling of papers and the occasional cough. Veronica stepped forward, her presence immediately commanding attention. The room fell into a hushed silence as all eyes turned toward her. "Veronica, please sit down," one of the men, the company's CFO, said. His voice was soft, but there was an unmistakable edge to it. But Veronica didn't sit. She didn't need to. She wasn't just another executive here. She was the one who had built this empire. And she would be damned if she was going to let anyone take it from her without a fight. The silence that followed her words was thick, heavy with unspoken tension. There was a battle coming. A battle she hadn't anticipated, but a battle she would win. Because this was her company. And no one, not even the very people she had trusted, could take that from her. The air was thick with an unease that seemed to settle deeper with every passing second. Veronica King stood in front of her company's headquarters, her sharp gaze unwavering, but her mind was already racing, unraveling what she couldn't yet comprehend. The towering glass building, once a symbol of her hard-earned success, now seemed like a cold, unwelcoming fortress. She could almost feel the weight of betrayal pressing against her chest, but she wasn't about to break. Access denied. The words hit her with a chill that reverberated through her entire being. She stared at the security guard, the slick smile on his face doing little to mask the tension simmering just beneath the surface. He didn't even hesitate. "No," Veronica said firmly, her voice carrying a quiet force. "Let me through." The guard didn't flinch. His eyes darted to the side, and she could see the barely concealed fear flicker in them. This was more than a simple mistake, more than a misunderstanding. The situation reeked of something darker, something planned. Her pulse quickened, but Veronica maintained control. She'd built an empire with her mind, and her mind wasn't going to betray her now. As she stood there, she felt the soft buzz of her phone in her pocket. Without looking down, she knew it was Kara, her assistant, trying to make sense of the chaos. Veronica's thumb hovered over the screen, sending Kara a quick, decisive text. "Call me. Something's wrong." The response came almost immediately. "I don't understand. The list is correct. Why aren't they letting you in?" Veronica's eyes never left the door as she tapped her response. "I'll figure it out. Stay alert." She wasn't waiting for answers. Not anymore. She had already made up her mind. "I'll get to the bottom of this," she muttered to herself, as if repeating the words could somehow make them more true, more solid. She'd spent years getting to this point, and she wasn't going to let anyone strip it away without a fight. Minutes passed, each one stretching like a pulled rubber band, ready to snap at any moment. That's when he appeared, Chad Foster, the senior vice president. He was a familiar face, one she knew well, but his timing was odd. Too odd. He was walking toward her with a nervous energy that didn't match his usual confident stride. There was something off about the way he held himself. Something uneasy, almost as though he was trying too hard to project calm. "Veronica," he greeted her, his voice almost too smooth. "What's going on here? You shouldn't be having trouble getting in. It's a misunderstanding, I'm sure of it." Veronica's eyes narrowed. He was the one who was supposed to know everything, the one who always had his finger on the pulse of the company. But now, his words were laced with an air of desperation that was impossible to ignore. Something wasn't right. Veronica could feel it, creeping under her skin, making her second-guess every move. Why was Chad, of all people, here now? Why was he pushing so hard to smooth things over? And why was he so nervous? Her mind raced through the possibilities, and the walls of her fortress seemed to close in. She stood taller, her posture sharp and commanding, but inside, she was unraveling the mystery with a precision only she could pull off. "Really, Chad?" she said, her tone a mixture of disbelief and growing suspicion. "A misunderstanding? You're usually better at handling things. But this doesn't feel like a mistake." His smile faltered for just a second, but it was enough. She saw it. His eyes darted to the side again, a classic sign of guilt. The doubt that had been simmering in the back of Veronica's mind now blossomed into full-blown certainty. There was something far deeper going on here. Something she wasn't meant to know. But she would know. She always did. Veronica's fingers tapped the screen of her phone once more, sending a short, encrypted message to a handful of trusted allies within the company. "Meet me later. Something's off." She kept it vague, knowing the less they knew now, the better. She didn't trust anyone in that building anymore, not even the people she thought she could count on. It was better to be safe than sorry. "I'm not going anywhere, Chad," Veronica said, her voice unwavering. "And neither are you. You can keep playing this game, but sooner or later, the truth will come out. You don't have to like it, but it's coming. All of it." She felt his eyes on her, searching for any hint of weakness, any flicker of doubt. But he wouldn't find it. Not from her. Not today. As the door loomed before her, locked and unyielding, Veronica King knew one thing for certain. This was just the beginning. And when the storm finally broke, it wouldn't be her company in ruins. It would be those who thought they could keep her from the life she built. They didn't know Veronica, not nearly as well as they thought they did. And in the end, that was their biggest mistake. The investigation begins with the sharp snap of a cold, hard reality. Veronica stands in front of the gleaming glass doors of the company headquarters. The weight of her decision presses down on her. This is no longer just about strategy or business. It's personal. This company, her legacy, is crumbling, and she's determined to find out who's behind it. She arranges an emergency meeting with the executives. The conference room is stark, all polished surfaces and cold, artificial lighting. But the tension in the room is palpable. As the board members file in, there's a divide among them. Some stand by her, their faces masked in nervous loyalty, but others, those who used to be her closest allies, shift uncomfortably in their seats, eyes darting from one to another. The question lingers in the air. Who can she trust? Veronica's gaze sweeps across the room. She feels it, the subtle shift in the atmosphere. The air is thick with hesitation, like a storm cloud that hasn't quite decided whether to break. But there's no time to waste. This isn't just a boardroom discussion. It's a war, and her company is the battlefield. Then, the discovery shatters everything. Veronica's fingers fly over the keyboard as she digs into the company's financial records. Her mind races, each click a step deeper into the abyss. The documents spread out before her like a web of lies, hidden debts, fraudulent insurance claims, embezzlement. The shock hits her first, a sharp coldness that freezes her veins. But then something worse takes hold, a gut-wrenching betrayal. She's been blind to this festering rot at the core of everything she built. The company she nurtured, the one she fought for, is on the verge of collapse, all because of the very people she trusted most. But it's only the beginning. As she sits there, digesting the betrayal, the realization hits her like a slap to the face. Some of the very executives she brought into power are complicit in the scheme. Their faces, once familiar and reassuring, are now unrecognizable, marked with the stains of deceit. Veronica's heart pounds, but she doesn't flinch. This is not a time for weakness. This is war. The board meeting becomes her battleground. Veronica stands before them, her stance unwavering, her gaze steady as steel. She calls them to attention, and the room falls into a tense, suffocating silence. The air is thick with guilt, but no one speaks. Not yet. One by one, the executives avoid her gaze, their discomfort rising like smoke from a fire they know they can't control. Veronica's voice cuts through the tension, sharp and cold. "We need answers. Now. There's no hiding anymore." One by one, the executives begin to speak, their words laced with defensiveness, but Veronica's sharp instincts don't miss a beat. She watches them like a hawk, each movement, each hesitation a clue, each lie another layer of the deception they've spun around her. Her eyes land on Chad, the senior VP, the one who had always been by her side. His nervous fidgeting, the slight twitch in his smile, it all tells her what she needs to know. Chad is at the heart of it all. Her voice trembles with controlled fury. "You knew. You all knew. And you let this happen." As the walls close in on them, the truth begins to unravel. The loyalty she once believed in is nothing more than smoke and mirrors. It's a game. And they've been playing her from the very beginning. The betrayal cuts deep, but Veronica's resolve grows stronger. The battle is far from over. But she won't back down. Not now. Not ever. The storm is coming. and Veronica will be the one to decide who stands and who falls. What do you think? Have you ever experienced a betrayal so deep it made you question everything? Drop a comment below and let us know how you would have handled it. If you want to see what happens next in this high-stakes game, hit that like button, share this story with your friends, and don't forget to subscribe. You won't want to miss what's coming next. The air was thick with tension as Veronica sat across from Chad Foster, the man who had once been one of her most trusted allies. His hands trembled, barely visible under the table, but enough for Veronica to see. His words stuttered, his voice betraying the lie that spilled from his lips. "No, Veronica, I had nothing to do with this," he insisted, his eyes darting around the room like a trapped animal looking for escape. She had already seen the cracks in his facade, the guilt that danced across his features. She didn't need words, she had the proof in her hands. With a cold, steady hand, Veronica slid the folder across the table, the weight of it hanging in the air like a death sentence. The folder contained emails, threads between Chad and the other conspirators. She had the recordings. She had it all. His involvement was undeniable. "Chad, you think these flimsy denials will save you?" Veronica's voice was ice, but her heart was anything but. Each word she spoke felt like a knife twisting deeper into the wound of her trust. His face paled. For a brief second, his bravado faltered, and the guilt that had been eating him alive broke through his carefully constructed mask. He knew he had been caught. But there was more to this than even he had planned to confess. "Veronica, I wasn't the only one," he muttered, his voice cracking as the weight of his own betrayal began to settle on him. He hesitated, then blurted it out. "It was your mother. She's been pushing this the entire time." Veronica froze, the world around her falling into a suffocating silence. Her mind raced to process what Chad had just said. Her mother? Her own flesh and blood? The woman who had always stood by her side, supported her dreams, and helped her build this empire, was the mastermind behind the plot to bring her down? The truth crashed into her like a tidal wave. She thought she was prepared for anything, but not this. Her own family. The very woman who had shaped her, guided her, had secretly been plotting her destruction, seeking to replace her and sell the company out from under her. Veronica's hands gripped the edge of the table, her nails digging into the wood as if she could hold herself together through sheer will. But the sting of betrayal was too deep, and her emotions surged, flooding her chest in waves. How could she do this? She had always known the business world was cutthroat, but to learn that the woman she had trusted the most, the one who had always been there, was the very one trying to destroy her legacy, was beyond comprehension. Her mother had seen her as a threat, someone whose power needed to be quelled. All along, Veronica had thought that the challenge came from the outside world, from her competitors. But the enemy had been inside the gates all along. As the shock settled, anger began to rise, hot and fierce, burning through the remnants of her disbelief. Chad had been a pawn in her mother's game. He had his reasons, of course. Greed, desperation, fear, but that didn't matter. He had chosen to play a role in her downfall. And for that, he would pay. "Your mother. She's been behind this the whole time." Veronica repeated the words, disbelief laced in her voice. Chad nodded, his expression one of resignation, his guilt suffocating him. He had already betrayed her once. There was nothing left to protect. Her mother's betrayal felt like a gut punch that took her breath away. It wasn't just a stab in the back, it was a soul-crushing blow that shattered everything Veronica had ever believed about family and loyalty. Her mind reeled as the weight of the situation hit her. The woman who had once been her biggest supporter was now her greatest adversary. The pain was palpable, suffocating. The emotional toll of this betrayal, by both her closest allies and now, by the one person who had been with her from the very beginning, left her questioning everything. And there it was, the hardest pill to swallow. Her mother, in her pursuit of control, had plotted to take away her legacy, to strip her of everything she had built. It wasn't about business anymore. It wasn't about the company or the money. It was about the betrayal of trust, the destruction of something far more precious, family. Veronica closed her eyes, a tear slipping down her cheek as the realization settled in. She would never be the same again. Under the dim light of the boardroom, the tension was suffocating. Veronica stood at the head of the table, a poised figure of calm authority. But inside, she was a storm waiting to break. She had known all along. Every whisper in the shadows, every hesitation, every uncertain look exchanged between her so-called allies, it had all been part of her plan. A plan that was now unfolding with razor-sharp precision. Chad Foster had played his role, rushing to her side with his innocent act, feigning concern. But Veronica wasn't fooled. She had set this trap long before. She had planted fake emails, forged meetings, and dropped hints in every corner of the company to lure the rats out of their holes. This was no coincidence. Everything that had happened, from the cold denial at the door to the unsettling confrontations, was a carefully orchestrated act designed to reveal the truth. Now, in the second board meeting, the room felt different. The air was thick with fear, suffocating the guilty parties as the reality began to dawn on them. As Veronica spoke, each word was a nail in the coffin of their deception. Chad's hands trembled as he tried to maintain his composure. His confession came in a low, almost reluctant murmur. "It wasn't just me, Veronica. Your mother. She." The room froze. Veronica's mother. The very woman who had stood by her side, her rock in the storm, was at the center of it all. A gasp rippled through the board members as the truth began to sink in. The conspiracy, the backstabbing, it all traced back to the woman who should have been Veronica's greatest ally. Veronica's heart hardened. She had known. But hearing it from Chad's trembling lips made it real. It was no longer a quiet suspicion, this was the betrayal of a lifetime. Her own flesh and blood had orchestrated the downfall of her legacy. The silence in the room was deafening. The air seemed to crackle with the weight of the revelation. "You thought I didn't know," Veronica's voice was ice, cutting through the tension. "But you were wrong." The moment of shock lingered in the air before Veronica struck. "You've all underestimated me," she said, her words slow and deliberate. "This was never about control. It was about trust. And you've betrayed that trust in the most unforgivable way." With a swift motion, she fired the conspirators one by one. Chad, her own mother, and several board members who had been in on the plot were all dismissed. One by one, they were ousted from the company they had tried to tear down from the inside. Veronica stood, looking each one in the eye. "You thought you could break me, ruin everything I've built. But what you didn't realize was that I've been waiting for this moment. All your lies, all your manipulation, none of it worked. This company is mine, and I will burn it to the ground if I have to, before I let you destroy it." Her mother, standing in stunned silence, finally met her gaze. "You don't understand what you've done, Veronica," she whispered, her voice faltering. "You've lost everything. This company, this was always my dream, my vision." Veronica's eyes darkened. "It was never your dream. It was mine, and you stole it. You let your ego blind you to everything that mattered. Now it's over." She turned to the remaining board members, the ones who hadn't been part of the conspiracy but had watched in silence. "This is my company now. And anyone who tries to tear it apart will be met with the same fate." The room erupted into chaos, but Veronica stood unfazed. Her vengeance had been swift and merciless. Her enemies had underestimated her, and now they would pay the price. Her mother's betrayal had been the final push, the one thing that had broken the illusion. With a cold, unwavering smile, Veronica declared, "This company is mine, and I will rebuild it in my image. You will regret ever doubting me." As she left the room, victorious, she felt a sense of finality. The battle had been won, but the war, her war, was far from over. The company trembled beneath the weight of Veronica's resolve, but it was in the rubble that her true strength began to rise. The fall of those who'd once held the reins of power was swift, and none more so than the man who had orchestrated the betrayal. Chad's downfall wasn't just public, it was catastrophic. The empire he once thought he would control with ease crumbled like dry paper between his fingers. Yet, Veronica felt no satisfaction in his suffering. There was no gloating, no sense of victory in his ruin. Instead, she walked past him with unwavering purpose, focused on the horizon, where the future of her company awaited her careful hands. She didn't need to see Chad fall to feel a shift in the air. The storm had passed, but it had left its mark, and it was time to rebuild. With the weight of her decisions behind her, she called the board back into the room, not as a passive observer, but as a woman who had already claimed her place. No longer the victim, no longer the one left out in the cold. Veronica was reborn, and with her, the company. She stepped into the CEO's office with the same grace and authority she had always carried, but now there was something different in her eyes. It was fire, determination, the knowledge that the enemy had been vanquished. Veronica wasn't here to simply take back what was hers. She was here to make sure it could never happen again. She tore through the company with surgical precision, dissecting every corner, every policy, every vestige of corruption. The taint of greed was removed, wiped away like chalk from a blackboard. The once stained halls were now filled with new faces, ones she could trust. The loyal allies who had stood by her when it seemed like all was lost were promoted, placed where they could protect the company from within. Veronica wasn't just cleaning house. She was rebuilding the foundation, ensuring that no shadow of betrayal could ever again cast itself over the future she was determined to create. But even as the company started to regain its momentum, Veronica knew that the most difficult part lay ahead. It wasn't just about removing the imposters, it was about facing the one person who had been her closest ally, the woman who had shaped her life, the one who had been her mentor, her mother. The confrontation was inevitable. Veronica could feel the weight of her mother's betrayal like an iron chain around her heart. She had trusted her, loved her, and yet, that same woman had been the architect of the conspiracy that almost destroyed everything Veronica had worked for. The pain of that betrayal ran deeper than the treachery of any stranger. It was a knife twisting in the core of her family. They sat in the same room, but it was no longer a mother and daughter. It was a confrontation, the weight of years of unspoken truths hanging between them. Veronica's voice was low, but it carried the force of a hurricane. "You betrayed me when I needed you the most," she said, the words cutting through the silence like a sharp blade. Her mother, once so regal in her power, now sat before her as nothing more than a broken woman. The betrayal was complete, and Veronica had no time for apologies. "I'll never allow anyone to take what I've built. Not even you," she said, her voice steady, unwavering. The woman who had once been a towering figure now crumbled under the weight of her own guilt, her own actions. For a moment, there was no answer. Her mother's eyes held 1,000 regrets, but Veronica could see through them. Regret wasn't enough. Apologies wouldn't fix what had been broken. And yet, despite the betrayal, Veronica's resolve never wavered. She was no longer the girl who had once clung to her mother's approval. She had learned that power was not given, it was taken. And now, she was taking back everything that was rightfully hers. The company was hers again, stronger than before. Her enemies had been dismantled. And now, even her mother had been forced to accept the truth. The daughter she had tried to destroy had become the woman who would shape her own destiny, and no one would take that from her again. Veronica stands in front of the towering headquarters, the place she built from the ground up, her eyes scanning the glass walls, now a symbol of everything she's been through. The battle has been brutal, but it's over. The air feels different now. The victory isn't just about reclaiming a company, it's about reclaiming herself. The woman who once fought alone is now stronger, more determined, and more powerful than ever before. This isn't just about taking control of a company. It's about fighting for what's mine, Veronica says, her voice steady, filled with purpose. The storm is over, but the work is far from done. This moment marks a turning point, not just for her but for everyone she's ever stood for. The door to the boardroom opens, and Veronica steps inside. The room is filled with the team that's been with her through the hardest battles, loyal, resilient, and ready. She stands at the front, addressing the people who were once just her colleagues but are now her trusted allies. Her words hit hard, each one a reminder of why they're all there together. What we've been through has tested us in ways no one could have imagined. But we're still standing. And now, it's time to build something stronger. It's time to build something real. Loyalty, integrity, leadership, these are the values we'll live by. Together, we'll redefine this company and prove that nothing can break us. The room is silent for a moment, but then, slowly, the team begins to nod, their faces lighting up with the energy of a new beginning. This is more than a company, it's a revolution. And Veronica is leading the charge. She's not just taking the reins back, she's shaping the future, and nothing, no one, can stand in her way. As she walks out of the room, the camera pans to her face, her expression confident, unyielding. The sun sets behind her, casting a golden glow on her figure, a visual testament to the strength she's found within herself. The legacy of this company is now hers, but more importantly, it's the legacy of someone who refused to let the world dictate her fate. They thought they could tear me down. But they forgot one thing, the voiceover cuts in, a powerful echo that resonates through every inch of the frame. I'm built for this. And with that, the camera zooms out, leaving Veronica standing tall, a figure of resilience and unshakable power, ready to take on whatever comes next. What do you think of Veronica's journey? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Let's talk about how she fought back and what it means to never back down. If this story inspired you, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe for more, and share it with your friends. Because everyone needs a reminder that nothing is impossible when you have the right kind of fight in you.